the notes. We'll have it for you once again. A few things that we ask you to just observe, about 4 things we ask you to observe as we go through today. Try to remember to keep your microphone muted until unless it's time to obviously share your views or ask a question. We're asking as well that you minimize movement. If you choose to have your camera on, you could just minimize the movement there, because some movements could come across as a distraction for others, and we wouldn't want anyone to miss valuable information during the session. If you have any questions, we are going to ask you to do 2 things. We're going to allow an opportunity for you to pose the questions, but also you can put the questions in the chat, which is located on the, it's coming up on my screen on the left, sorry, on the right side. I think it's probably on the right side for you as well, but there's a chat window there. You can put your questions in it. And once you're on and going to be discussing, we ask that you, number 4, try to remain in a quiet and controlled space. We know that sometimes the work from home means that the children might be running by. It's okay, just manage that as best as possible if that's your situation. We also want to know one other thing. We want to know if this time is the best time for you to attend these sessions. We are going to have 2 more, one next week and another the week after. And so we wanted to find out from you if this time works well, or what other time could work well. So we ask that you indicate your preference by writing X time is good for me in the chat window. So if you're more an evening person, you prefer like a 6 o'clock session or so, you could say 6 o'clock is good for me, or 8:30 is good for me in the evening. Or maybe you want an early morning session, and so 7 is good for you. You can say 7 o'clock is good for me. Just put that in the chat. Would appreciate hearing from you. At this time, we're going to get straight to it because we know the time is valuable and we don't have a lot of time. We're going to hear now from Mr. Ian Nita, second Vice President of the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to bring some greetings on behalf of our partners.
Thank you, Kalando. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome everyone to this session. And I also speak on behalf of the other BSOs that I'm sure are happy to discuss this topic, staying in business during and after COVID. I don't know anybody that wouldn't be keen and wouldn't be very interested in what we have to say and what we have to hear. The Jamaica Chamber of Commerce have always facilitated seminars because it's our way of disseminating information to help businesses to make decisions and to really get ahead of the game internationally and locally. And so we are adapting to the new norm here by participating now in webinars. I find that it is good. I believe it's going to be a norm that will stay with us because it is such an efficient way of communicating. And I know that all of us who have been locked away in our homes are anxious to have a forum like this where we can engage and talk about the issues that we're facing and try to futurecast what is it that we expect to have in the business world. So, and I think it's also important that we are starting out with maximizing the connection with both customers and staff, because it's people that are going to be the center of the driving force going forward. It's going to be even more important than the systems, how we adapt and how we embrace the new norm. So I want to just congratulate you for the courage to step forward at this time, and also the participation of everyone. Welcome, and hope we have a great session. Thank you.
You need to unmute Kalando.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, COVID-19 has forced many businesses to adapt to new ways of operating at an unprecedented pace. So while the nature of the change differs across businesses, at the end of the day, people have to keep working and leaders have to keep leading. So we come to today's question: how can managers lead and inspire their people while keeping productivity high when teams are working remotely? Some teams are coming in, some managers have to manage teams that are remotely exclusively, while some people are coming in and out of the office. So this is a dynamic that most have never faced and therefore have no blueprint to follow. So to lead this discussion is a solutions finder Janice Sutherland is CEO of Sutherland Coaching and Consulting with 25 years of experience producing results with executives. She has the distinct achievement of being the first female CEO of Digital Antigua and Montserrat. Janice is British born to Antiguan and Kititian parents, and she has lived in Antigua for the last 10 years with a Jamaican husband. And she is as dynamic and vibrant as the colorful family and cultural heritage she has. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now welcome Janice Sutherland.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Thank you for inviting me to speak this afternoon. Can you all hear me okay? Is everything sound is fine, Orlando?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Excellent. So thank you so much for inviting me this afternoon. I'm delighted to share my knowledge with you. This is probably a good news, bad news scenario right now. The good news is let me give a good news sandwich. The good news is that you already know the information that you need to have to manage your team. It just needs to be done in a different way. The bad news is I only have 20 minutes to go through this with you. But the last good news is that you don't really have to take notes. You can focus on what's been discussed this afternoon because I provide a very comprehensive ebook to go along with this presentation that elaborates in a lot more detail what I'm going to talk about this afternoon. So we're going to kick off about looking at leadership in a newly remote world. And the newly there is obviously highlighted because many of us haven't been in this situation before. What we'll cover off is really where should a leader's focus be in this current scenario, the 6 questions you need to answer to successfully lead a remote team, and where to find additional support with some also Q&A. Now, where should a leader's focus be? Traditionally, we're mostly traditional leaders here, so most of the times we focus on looking at input. So when we have somebody in our office or a team, we're very uncomfortable with having people working at home because how can we say they're at work when they're at home? How do I know they're working if they're not in the office? How will I know they're actually doing the job I'm paying them to do? And how can I lead when my team is not in front of me? How do I keep my team happy and on track to complete projects? And even probably the biggest thing is how do I trust them to deliver? And that's really the crux of the matter. It's all about trust when it comes to leading your remote team. Now, the real issue of when you focus on managing inputs, and when I talk about inputs is that you are looking at somebody being in the seat, someone being at the desk. I could be there I could be there 8 hours. Let's be realistic. I could be there 8 hours, but I could be playing Candy Crush for the entire 8 hours. You don't really know what I'm doing unless you're sitting over my shoulder at that desk. So if you focus on managing inputs, you end up turning into a micromanager. So it's a bit of a micromanagement going on there. You really lose focus of the real objective and the bigger picture. And as I said, you also risk becoming the obstacle. So you become the roadblock when it comes to somebody doing their work. If you are just focused on how much time, the input somebody's spending when they're working from home, when they're working remotely. So your focus here in this whole thing, as I said, you already have the skills. Your focus here is to focus on the real objective, and that is the result you want to see out of the employee, the person doing the job. You need to focus on the actual results, the outputs of what you need to see happen. And that is really a real mindset change for a lot of leaders because they are used to as I said, seeing bums in seats and believing that equates to work. But if you take nothing away from this afternoon, but this one thing, it will put you in good stead. So when you're leading a remote team, don't measure success through presenteeism, but measure it by productivity and output instead. That's where your real focus needs to be. You need to be really clear on what those are. And we're going to go through those 6 questions. Once you answer these 6 questions, that'll enable you to actually answer that succinctly and be able to focus on productivity and output. So the 6 questions, what are they? Communication. So how do I establish effective communication channels with my team whilst they're remote? Clarity. What do I need to do to ensure that my team know what is expected of them during this period? Team building, how do I maintain team camaraderie, improve morale and stay on track? Productivity, what can I do to maintain productivity levels within my remote team? Accountability and performance, which is where our focus normally is how do I avoid performance issues with my team whilst they're at home? And lastly, if we're in this for a protracted period, there's going to come a time where we need to evaluate performance. So what actions can I take to ensure my team know how they're performing? So we're going to focus on those 6 questions in a little more detail. First, communicating with your team. Pretty obvious, I suppose, sometimes is setting up the right tools. And what I mean by that is, how are you going to communicate? Are you going to use Microsoft Teams? Are you going to use Zoom? I encourage people not to use WhatsApp as a means of communication, because that tends to be more of a private and personal thing for employees. But if that's how you've been used to communicating and you have to use it, then you can, by all means, continue doing so, but set up some protocols. And by that is establishing the check-in routine that works best for your team. Remember, I said up front, you don't want to be micromanaging. So it doesn't mean you have to be calling your people every hour on the hour to say, are you in the seat? Have you done this? What are you doing? Establish a check-in routine that works best for your team. Is it a morning buzz brief for 5 minutes to make sure people are clear on what's happening? Is it a debrief at the end of the day so we know where we left off and what we need to focus on in the morning? But between yourself and your team, you agree what that looks like. During the day, encourage open lines of communication between you and your team. So how are they able to communicate you? Can they email you? Can they drop you a message? What are those protocols? What are you going to have that enables you to communicate with your team during the day? And then create a space for staff to communicate with one another, be that with messaging platforms such as Teams, so at least they can keep in touch and they don't feel disconnected from everybody else in the office, because it's a big shift for them as it is for you. Secondly, is setting clear expectations. This is about your clarity and everybody having clarity on what's expected of them. I say create detailed onboarding documentation, but that could be just a one pager that outlines what's expected when they need to check in, what their targets are, but make sure it's clear and everybody understands what needs to be done. Secondly, is establish a clear chain of command. If you have a large team, Kalanda talked about some people working in the office, some people working remotely, maybe you want to split up and delegate some of your activities to put to other persons to make sure there's always a continuous point of contact. If that's what you do, make sure your team members know what the clear chains are. Who do they need to speak to if they run into a problem, if they run into a challenge? And also be open to discuss how to resolve problems and questions. You don't want someone sitting there on an issue not knowing where to go. And within that, also explain how the individual's tasks contribute to the company's goals or culture. Everybody likes to know they're playing their part and where they fit in when it comes to being part of that team. Third is team building. As I said, provide opportunities for remote social interaction on your buzz briefs or your weekly meetings. Maybe it's a bit of a pizza chat, a remote coffee chat. You know, it doesn't always have to be about work. Find out what's happening with everybody. Give them a chance to kind of swap war stories and what's happening and, you know, what challenges they're facing, but provide that opportunity for remote social interaction. Continue, and I say that because I know you're all doing it, to provide encouragement and emotional support. And now more than ever, if you haven't been doing one-to-ones, this is really the time you need to do them, because this is the one time your team member has the opportunity to really connect with you and tell you what's happening, and for you to listen for any telltale signs that they may not be coping very well with the current environment, so you can step up and support them. For managing workflow, and we talked about productivity, how do you make sure that happens? Use task management tools. You can use Asana. Maybe you want to use some sort of other program, like project management program. If all else fails and you're working on a project, a good old Excel Gantt chart that you can just, you know, add and delete who's doing what and keep a track of progress will do just fine. but have some way of actually managing and monitoring where tasks are and where there may be gaps in what needs to be delivered. And as I said, create that check-in culture. This is where it comes paramount. So once you establish that, make sure people maintain it and you maintain it too. 5, addressing accountability and performance. And this is obviously where a lot of people get very anxious about, a lot of leaders get anxious because how do I address accountability? How do I manage performance if they're not in front of me? As I said at the top of the presentation, you need to focus on the outcomes, not the input. It doesn't matter if someone's sitting in that seat for 8 hours a day, but they haven't delivered on what you need to deliver on to. So that really is a waste of time. So you really need to be very clear on what they need to be delivered and what your expectations are at the end of the day. So assign clear deadlines, make sure there's non-negotiables, make sure you highlight what that is and where they need to communicate if they're meeting roadblocks that enables them to deliver those deadlines. Create a culture of positive feedback. It can be great. We can always want to focus on what, it's very easy for us to focus on what's not going well, where we're having challenges. But again, people don't always want to hear that. We all know that. People want to hear about where am I doing well? This is a new environment for me. How do I manage it? Am I navigating it well? Am I doing well? What's the feedback? Am I doing, as a leader, you need to be encouraging feedback. You need to know that you're supporting your team adequately to enable them to deliver on the deadlines and the projects and the tasks that you're assigning them. And this is a big one. I don't know what it's like for Jamaica, but I know definitely in Antigua, one of the things I see a lot of leaders shy away from is addressing poor performance, is having those uncomfortable conversations because they just don't want to deal with the reactions of how people may react. And that becomes even more paramount because it's very easy to kind of hide and say, look, they're not in the office. I don't need to have that discussion. But this is the time you really need to make sure you address that poor performance, nip it in the bud very, very early on, because you don't want that to escalate into something a lot bigger, escalate to something that will have huge repercussions maybe for other people in the team. So if someone is struggling, if someone isn't delivering the way you think they should be, then you really need to step up as that leader to address that poor performance. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. That's how you're going to address your accountability and performance challenges in the organization. Lastly, evaluating performance, and I'm really rattling through this. So evaluating performance, if we're there for a lot more protracted period, we're already coming up to definitely a month here and maybe a month and a half. You may have had that period, maybe appraisals need to be done and things like that. So if you have to evaluate performance during this period, the first thing is, as I said, is scheduling regular feedback. So it's part of your one-to-ones, you already have them scheduled. And again, it's imperative you maintain them. I know what can happen. Something more important, we deem more important, can come along. We reschedule, we put it on the back burner. But you need to remember that that's probably the main core of communication that your team member is going to have with you. So if you ignore that or reschedule it and they have an issue, they don't really know where to turn because that was their time and they've built up the courage to have that conversation with you. So please ensure that you schedule your regular feedback. And if it's in your diary, and one thing I always used to do, if that feedback session is in my diary, then it's as important as any other meeting I need to have. So you need to place that level of performance, level of importance on that session as well for your team, because it's the one way they're going to feel wanted and appreciated during this period. Encourage employee self-reflection before the review. So get them to actually review their performance. How do they think they're performing? Have a core set of questions you may want to have them prepare first of all, just to get them in a reflective mood. So it's not you telling them they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. They actually have bought into the process that they need some challenges they may need to look at as well. And as I said, don't blindside them with negative feedback. You should be in your one-to-ones and through this period, you should be having these conversations. So there should be no surprises. Just like we don't like surprises when we come to these meetings or have a meeting with our own superiors, neither should there be any surprises for them. So don't blindside them with negative feedback. So once you answer those 6 quick questions and around that, you shall be in a good position. Once your team are up and running, there are lots of different questions you can ask your team to keep them engaged, connected and productive. And in the PDF handout you're going to get at the end of the session, I probably add about 30 different questions. You can pick and choose what works best for you. But the goal for you is to actually ascertain that your team are, one of better words, settled into the process. So you need to ask what challenges are they facing and how you can help. How are they feeling? What are their energy levels? Are they clear on their role and what they should be working on and what aspects aren't clear? What are the wins they had? Again, we need to celebrate those wins, small, big or small. How do you think we could improve daily communication? What do you do to recharge? Mental health right now is very big, and people are already stressed at home. If they're working from home with their children, they're trying to give a good impression themselves working from home, just like they would in the office. But they have these interruptions they didn't have to deal with before. So they're feeling a little more heightened, stressed, a little more anxiety. So, you need to make sure you check in with them to make sure they are recharging. They don't have to sit at their table, their desk, or the dining table for 8 hours a day. Are they taking a break like they normally would? The casual coffee, maybe the casual chats they don't get. Are they taking those breaks? Is there anything you need from me? That's a really important question to ask them to make sure that you are supported adequately. And do you feel supported by the teams that you could ask any of them for help? So again, there's different channels for them to reach out to if they feel that you're not the person they need to talk to. So where can you find additional support? As I said, there's lots of things I've rattled off there. There's the free ebook that you'll get in today's presentation. Talk to your colleagues. You are all in the same boat pretty much. So may have found things that have worked for them that you haven't thought about. Really feel no way about asking for that support. The biggest sign of strength when it comes to a leader is knowing where to go for help when you need it. If you need coaching support, there are different coaching programs. I myself run in-house coaching programs for teams that are new to this and that we can troubleshoot some of the challenges they're facing. And there's nothing better than asking your team, again, what do they think you can do to improve what's happening? How can they work better? Have they heard something from maybe some of their colleagues who are working in different businesses? You don't have to go through this alone. And then lastly, what I would say, and it's a big thing, is take it easy upon yourself, because it is new to you too, most likely. So you don't know everything. You don't need to know everything. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know where to go when you need that support for a question you can't answer at that particular time. Again, just as it's new to your team, it's also new to you. So you cannot expect yourself to be firing on all cylinders the way you did when you were in the office. You already have your own stressors, looking after your family, looking after your team, this new remote way of working, still trying to deliver on your objectives, your KPIs. So find some time. Everything I've said for the team also needs to apply to yourself as well. And if I haven't covered anything in the presentation or some other issue or some other challenge you're faced with, please feel free to contact me. As I've clicked off there, please feel free to contact me by any of those channels, as I said. And that's my presentation for this afternoon. I hope that has been some help to you going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Janice, for that presentation. We will allow a few questions now just to keep things going. This new information, we're getting these questions that we need to be asking ourselves to ensure that we are putting in the right solutions for our teams as they work remotely. Do we have any questions from the floor, from those in attendance? You can pose a question now.
Just wanted to say two things. Janice,
Yes.
excellent presentation. I think everything that you said made a lot of sense, and definitely things that we are trying to do now. Another thing is that there is no chat option that is there. I heard Kalanda mention previously that we're able to send message. I'm not getting that as an option. So if that could just be done for us.
Addressed.
As it relates to the ebook, will we be getting this via email?
Yes, we will be sending the email out to the attendees. So all the folks who attended today, we would have your information, and then we're going to share takeaways from these webinar sessions with you. So all the stuff that Janice has packed into that ebook, you will get to go through to support your team. Sorry, what company are you with? Or if you could say, I just see SC, so I'm not sure what the name is.
Oh, my apologies. I thought I had my full name. It's Samoy Cole, representing Market Research Services Limited, home of Don Anderson.
Okay, thank you so much, Samoy.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
We will try to see what we can do about your being able to see the chat. All right. Is there any other, do we have any other questions from those in attendance right now? We'll take another question or two. Okay, Janice, I had one for you. So a company might have been looking to expand, and ordinarily, you know, you're looking to expand, you're moving into either a bigger space or you're seeking to, you know, get another location. And so, but the current stay in place orders might actually be suggesting to businesses that maybe what you do, rather than expand and go get another building, you could look at a remote work situation. How would you advise companies who may be in that space right now to look at these options?
I think it's a really interesting situation we're in now, because everybody's talking about the new normal. And what I see happening post-COVID is that the expectations of many of the stakeholders will definitely change. So even your current employees may want to have an expectation of working from home if it's worked successfully. So I think if it works for your organization, there are many benefits from maybe a cost. You know, if you have to get a bigger building, a bigger office, from rent costs and stuff like that, there may be some upsides to doing it. It really depends on if it works for your organization. But I think what we need to get, even before we recruit new people, if we currently have people working from home now and it's worked for them, do not be surprised if your team come back and challenge to you as to why they cannot do that in the future. And that's something that people need to be really cognizant of, because, yeah, if it works for some, why can't it work full time going forward?
Yes, that would introduce some new challenges and policies for businesses. But, you know, this whole situation is going to usher us into a new thinking anyway. So,
very much.
You know, and then people can get some support in case they need to make those kinds of decisions. Thank you very much, Janice. I know you're going to stick around because we'll open the floor again after this for more questions if folks have it. In the meantime, I have something here that I need to do. Is Andrea Dunbar on the call?
Yes,
Andrea Dunbar?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wonderful. I wish to say congratulations to you, Andrea, as being one of the first people to arrive. We have a giveaway of a $5,000 voucher for you to get some fresh local produce delivered to you by Farmgate Jamaica E-Market.
Thank you.
You thought you were in trouble, eh?
No, not at all.
You were trying to figure why am I being called? I didn't.
Yes, I was trying to figure that out.
Didn't plan it well. Yeah, that's why we have a giveaway, and you know we're gonna have a few more of these for the other sessions. So folks, you never know, you might just win a gift voucher to support our farmers as we try to secure, you know, our food security at this time is paramount. So we're addressing that. Congratulations, Andrea. You're going to be contacted by a member of the MCS group marketing team to figure out how you get your voucher, etc.
Okay, Kalanda, thanks very much.
Thanks for joining. Yes. Okay, so we, at this point, because we're going to go to the next session, we just want to apologize. Dwayne had to be replaced at this time by Damion Crawford, and we're very happy that he was able to jump in. So we apologize that Dwayne, the general manager for MC Systems, is not able to do the session today, but we know that this is a very important topic, and we were able to find someone who is able to anchor this for us and lead us into this conversation, because we know customers are also facing never before seen circumstances during this pandemic, and some things are easy to spot. For example, it's clear that businesses are relying heavily on technology to serve customers. Industries such as the banks, as you know, banks are directing people to use their digital products, and then you have grocers and restaurants that are using these delivery partners who use these app-based services to get so customers can continue to enjoy their convenience of, getting the stuff that they want. Undoubtedly, COVID-19 is causing shifts in buying behavior of customers. But what do these shifts look like, and what can we learn about customers in this time? And more importantly, what can businesses do? So here, wearing his UA lecturer hat today, and I suppose, and businessman as well, entrepreneur, Damion Crawford is going to help us with some of these answers to the questions as we walk through this. So I say, please welcome Senator.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us at this time. So we talk about buying behavior, but in truth, the buying part of that whole buying behavior is one part of the process. There's an overall process that a customer goes through when they're going to be buying something. Help us understand the process a little better.
Well, the buying behavior is different from the process. And good afternoon, everyone. So a person can go through the awareness, interest, desire, action process. However, there's also the need recognition process. So the general purchase starts with recognizing that there's a need, a state of felt deprivation. And so a person must first feel deprived to then move into any activity of a purchase. What COVID-19 has done is to create a certain difference or shift in what we feel deprived of. So a lot of people wouldn't understand that if I am lacking but don't feel lacking, then there's no need. And if I am not lacking but feel lacking, there is a need. So let's look at shopping, for example. There's some people overbuying food. So they're not lacking, but they feel that they need to hoard up on this. And by extension, it is a need because it's a state of felt deprivation, not necessarily a state of existing deprivation. So that state of felt deprivation then moves into a purchase based on how you're socialized. So our culture will impact on that. So when I want to, I'm still old school. So I went to the bank to lodge a check, but the bank is saying that they're taking no more lodgement. We have to do a drop box. I am frustrated by it because of how I am socialized. I'm socialized that it's safe to go to the bank, get your slip, and keep your slip to say that I've lodged this check. Now, there are others like yourself which seem much more youthful in your operations that would find.
I actually prefer the Dropbox, so yes, go on.
Yeah, you'll find me kind of archaic going in a line to lodge. So after the deprivation, then there comes the expression of that deprivation, the attempt to satisfy based on your socialization. And that is where businesses come in, because once we then want, if we have enough money to back that want, we become a part of your market, the current and future demand of a product. So we want something and we have enough money to be able to want it. So then you say, okay, this person is a part. So the person that got the gift a while ago, those who need marketing information and can afford to pay her is then a part of her market. There'll be some businesses like myself who want market information but can't afford to pay for it. And
Right.
That is not a part of your market, because really you're seeking to do a profitable relationship. If there's no profitability, then you're not in a business. You're just maybe in a volunteer organization or something like that. So what we're happening is that this whole new scenario is creating a difference in what needs we perceive, what deprivations we perceive. So for example, I want to live more healthy, I want to eat more healthy, my immune system have to get a better ability to fight at this particular point in time. So you find that people are taking vitamin shots and people are buying more vitamin pills and people
Right.
are eating more healthy food instead of fast food, because they said that this illness, resistance to illness, there's a difference in need. And there's been a re-socialization in how we seek to satisfy that. So KFC is now delivering, and more of us are asking for KFC to deliver. Fresh fruits and vegetables are now having farmers markets in communities. Some are delivering to your homes, etc. And also supermarkets are now saying you can do curb pickup. More and more that is going to become part of our socialization. So there used to be housewives that saw a supermarket as an escape. They go and there's nobody to bother them and they walk around a little bit, and they might even have their own little supermarket club that meet and talk and do their own thing. Now that we have the curbside pickup, that is now a new option that might lead to different choices of escape, because the supermarket don't lead to long-term removal from home and stuff like that. So I think that it's going to change the whole buying process, and I think it's also going to change the buying behavior. Supermarkets must understand that all supermarkets are now close to me. You see, so habitual buying behavior might change to variety-seeking buying behavior. I stop at the supermarket on way from work to home. That's out of habit. But now that I'm shopping online, that habit is no longer necessary. So if you $10 more, me shift to high-low. And if high-low $5 more, me shift to Megamart, because the habitual buying behavior of stopping on way from work has now been changed to a variety-seeking buying behavior. Let me see what this one has to offer.
Okay. And so I'm happy you introduced it in that way, because I was going to ask you if you could sort of broadly explore some of the shifts, so that maybe you can see. Like when I look at it, I'm asking the question, is it really that the buying behavior is changing in as much as what people expect of businesses now? Is maybe that's what's changing? Because I may still want the same thing, but now I have a different expectation of the business in getting that thing to me.
Yes, well, what will satisfy a client will change. Now, people should understand that satisfaction is when the actual is greater than the expected. That's a simple reality about what satisfies people. So what is expected has changed. And by extension, what satisfies them has changed. You see, once upon a time, I didn't expect a supermarket to deliver. So the fact that they don't deliver wasn't an issue to me. But now that I start to expect that to happen, right? They will tell you that once you receive something, it becomes the new expected. So delivery wowed me the first week. Like, wow, they deliver, that's great. But then the second week, I expect delivery. So coming out of COVID, we're going to be expecting greater convenience. And that's what delivery is. In fact, for those who are listening, convenience is the #1 selling product. It has been for the longest time. So a cell phone is simply a convenient way to communicate. Google is a convenient library. So convenience have long been the #1 selling product. And what this COVID thing has done is to now expose many Jamaicans to the possibility and the satisfaction that exists within convenience. And they will then demand that convenience. So if you seek to satisfy, you must deliver equal or more than what the customer expects. And this last 8 weeks, I think, has changed the customer expectation of what level of convenience should be offered.
Okay, at this time we're going to take some questions from the floor. Do we have anybody who wants to put a question to Damion regarding how customers' buying behavior might be changing? Could maybe put a scenario, your own business, etc. Anybody at this time? No? All right. I have another question for Damion. All right. So a greater awareness about health. You mentioned that earlier. A greater awareness about health and hygiene is foremost in the minds of consumers. How do you think that this is going to factor into? I mean, now it is, because people expect when you turn up to a place, there's the expectation that you have some kind of sanitation protocol at the entrance way.
Yes.
How do you think business?
I think that we mistake to believe that it's a greater awareness. I mean, we were all aware that we should wash our hands. We just feel more deprived of it now. So it is not that we're aware of it more, or that is the. I don't think that is the driving variable. It is the deprivation that we feel because of the circumstances that we face. So once the circumstances change, we have to wonder if that feeling of deprivation will reverse or if it will continue. So, for example, a hotel, right, or a restaurant will have to then reanalyze how their stocking rates are going to be approached. For example, am I still willing to go to a hotel and go into the line to walk and wait for food with people breathing over it on the buffet? I might not be. Well, I definitely wouldn't be this week. But maybe 2 months from now, I don't feel deprived in that way again because COVID gone. You understand? How would
Right.
the pool arrangement be made? Because now I kind of want my 6 feet apart. So, yeah, at the pool deck. So once upon a time, the pool deck, man, is all right by 2 feet, 3 feet, which is like a pool chair. But now we might want 6 feet. So the hotels, if this continue, might have to change the size of them pool deck or have multiple decks. Because the stocking rate may change. When I go to the bar, at the restaurant or whatever, I might not want to be as close to strangers as normal. I might not facilitate that as I used to. So the real question is, will the deprivation that we now feel continue into the future after the circumstance, the situation is past? Will I still want an umbrella after the rain ends? That's a question that we have to ask. So I think that we mistake awareness as the driving factor more so than the feeling of deprivation. Because after awareness, there come interest, there come desire, and there come action. So therefore, awareness in and of itself has never driven consumption. It is the hurdle, the first hurdle towards, because there's no consumption without consciousness. If I am not conscious of it, then I won't consume it. So therefore, I believe that what we need to analyze in our own business is, will this deprivation continue after? Will people still want to not crowd up in the supermarket, or they might want to go back to that? Will
Right.
people still not? Will people still not necessarily want to go to the bank because of the inconvenience of standing outside in the sun, or they might go back? So when this moves, what will remain as deprivation feelings and what will change back to normal is a question that each business have to answer.
Non-contact is one of those things that we are kind of encouraged now to, in terms of minimize contact. But technologies such as the tapping on the cards for payment, or being able to check yourself out of they have in certain markets. Do you see the non-contact playing a role in how consumers deal with business going forward? I mean, like, even Jamaicans, we are very accustomed to being very social and making contact, and now we're being asked to not do that. And so the longer this sets in and the more people enjoy that convenience of just not having contact, how do you figure that would impact us going forward?
It depends on the person, because, for example, I'm slightly depressed by the lack of contact. I'm used to going out on the road, hugging people, getting a kiss every now and again, and stuff like that. Now I'm avoiding going out because a lady hugged me the other day, then returned to give me her elbow, suggesting that it's the proper way to do it. She already hugged me.
Why did it take a hug?
Yeah, she's resocializing. She just pick up in her mind, and she returned to give me her elbow, having hugged. So basically, different personalities will what will happen is, those people that didn't like interfacing before, was constrained by society that said that you're going like you're better than people.
Right.
Now you have a legitimate reason to not want to interface, and so therefore there will be less social constraint. There will be less social shaping for people who are not very friendly.
Right.
To act as if they are. But those who still perceive risk, and remember, risk is a part of consumption, right? A person buys based on value, and the Norman equation suggests that value is benefit divided by outlay. where outlay is price, future cost, and risk, of one of which is physical risk. So one of the reasons why we are able to go downtown and buy for a cheaper price is simply because risk must be subsidized by price. That is something that we have to now consider within our business. If people perceive higher risk in consuming our product, would we have to subsidize that risk with our price? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
If I don't have delivery at my supermarket, would I have to charge cheaper prices so people still come?
These are right.
Yeah.
That would be a question you have to answer.
Yeah, each company have to answer that. And can I subsidize it enough? Because it might be cheaper to subsidize the price than to create the distancing. You see? So therefore, the systems that might have to be put in place to create the convenience might be more expensive than seeking to be a downtown destination, for example. You understand? So the same exact food downtown is cheaper. The same exact house in Waterhouse is cheaper because price subsidized risk.
So one of the things that we're seeing, and in reading some of the stuff, looking forward to this, we're looking at the fact that e-commerce, people are adapting to that more. People are becoming more. So a business that never had that, which we just touched on, would now need to think about, okay, to what extent do I put this in? Because that can look very different for each business. Yeah. Whatever they put in to facilitate their customers still being able to patronize whatever they have to offer.
Right.
Look different depending on the type of business that you are. But in your own estimation, tracking these trends.
Yes.
What's business experience? What kind of action should the business people be looking to take right now to prepare themselves for post-COVID?
Well, a business fundamental responsibility is to create a profitable relationship. So you must look at what is the cost of implementing any activity and what is the revenue that you'll gain from it. So for example, should I put a online presence and sell online? That depends on how much that costs and how much more money I'm going to make from it. If I'm going to pay $100 to have this online presence and only make $5 from it, that's a bad business decision to make, because I'm now in a net loss position. So I, for example, I'm very worried about the general and overall acceptance that it is automatic to move in a particular direction without without putting a business analysis towards it. What are the clients that I have? Because many persons who are older are not going to automatically in the short term become comfortable. Even if they're pressured into doing it now, they might want to go back. So the credit union might still have to go back to face because that client might want to. But the younger people may embrace this move and this change and don't want to go back. What percent of your market are the younger people and what percent of your market are the older people? Each business have to analyze. I also fear that we have, for some reason, accepted information technology as a general umbrella for technology. Technology is simply a better way of doing things. So therefore, there are going to be better systems that can put in place with delivery systems, etc. That is technology can assist, and not necessarily information and communication technology, which means that I am now going to have a page or stuff like that.
Right.
The negative of that, however, is, as I said, that one world, one country, everybody can access on the internet, then takes away you having your little geographical niche. You understand? So what happens now is that it broadens competition. So the new normal is a more competitive space because everybody exists on the same laptop in front of me. There is no inconvenience based on distance, based on knowledge, based on effort, if everybody's on the same computer. So once upon a time, Lee's Fifth Avenue had me captive because I didn't have a visa. Then over time, I can go to foreign, but it's too expensive. And then over time, I can buy online. So Lee's Fifth Avenue is now competing directly with the people selling from Amazon or whoever.
Right. So from what you're saying is for some businesses, this may just be an interim solution. Any kind of delivery or whatever it is that they're doing may be an interim solution, and
Yes.
it may not be something that they go forward with after this happens. They
If
would
it
need,
won't generate more revenue than costs.
right.
Yes.
I'm saying it that way because I'm wondering if a business, rather than be thinking about the fact that, oh, this is what people are going to need, they might, especially small businesses that may never have engaged in any kind of, thorough impact
Yes.
analysis, etc., might now be needing to be thinking that this may not necessarily work for your business going forward. So you need different strategies. Even as the
Yes.
consumer behavior is changing, you need a different strategy to keep your business open.
Yes.
Because this thing of moving everything online, I mean, when you think about people shopping online, there is another component of like an inventory management system that creates that sort of real-time data about whether the product you're trying to buy is available. Can be a
Yes.
very expensive system to implement, can be equally as expensive to maintain, and
money,
therefore,
the
right?
expertise might not be present. So
And
I'll give you an example. I went online and put out that I'm selling a particular product, in this case, mutton. And people started to respond and say, how we buy, how we buy. In a day, they ordered more than I had. Now, what is the negative of that? Half of the people who ordered might be disappointed and never order again.
right.
You understand? I might have lost future clients, the lifetime value of those people who were disappointed in not being able to receive. So therefore, there's no positive that don't have a negative in it, and there's no negative that don't have a positive in it. Each person must analyze the sum net value and decide if this is beneficial. You can position your business as a less for less business, for example, and therefore not offer the value of delivery. You just pay less money, because when I do the mathematics, for example, delivery might be $3,000. What if I'm only buying 1 pound of rice?
Right.
I'm not paying an additional 3,000. But people who buying 80, 40, $60,000 worth of goods will say, okay, deliver 3,000 is satisfactory. But if I only want a small thing, I might still go to the store.
Right.
You understand? So are my clients people willing to spend 40,000 plus 3,000, or are my clients people spending $1,000 on food and won't spend $3,000 on delivery? You understand? Each business have to analyze and recognize that. Then you must also see who are the influencers of your clients. So if your influencers are online, then the client will move online. If the aspirational group is online, then the client will move online. So if alcohol wants to be sold online and the artists are buying it online, then the drinkers will follow the artists because they're influenced by the artists. You understand? But
Is there a way for businesses to track the consumer behavior independent of, say, like an expert such as yourself? Is there a way that they can just sort of start to take notes of certain things that would help them with those decisions going forward? Because the behavior of the groupings differ. Not all category of customer are behaving in the same way. How can a business keep track of that for themselves?
Well, first of all, I accept your kindness by suggesting that I'm an expert. But no, there are companies like Dan Anderson present in your webinar now that can offer that service. Some of the times they actually have information on different demographics, and if you can identify your demographic, but also just talking to your clients. So immediately, I'm a business-to-business seller, which is different from a consumer, which is a final user seller, right? So I sell to businesses, and immediately as this COVID thing, I interface with them. How can we operate? You understand? So if you interface with your clients and allow them to ask these questions, allow them to suggest these things, then you will see a trend in what they'll prefer. You understand? Like, why you not deliver? And over time, you see this trend and say, okay, maybe delivery is something that my clients want. How I can order online? Maybe that is something that my clients want. So the more you allow that interface, especially between workers and your clients, then you will be better able to get some information on what are the directions that they prefer you to go.
So you're saying they can get a research firm that's skilled at it if they want, or
Yes.
just having conversations. But you talk about a B2B conversation versus a B2C conversation. Would you be able to identify any main points that make those two things as they are? Trying to
emotion is less important in the business to business than it is in the business to consumer. So, for example, a person might feel very committed to their supermarket, but a business really normally have that equal commitment. So emotion is one thing. There's a greater level of expertise in the business conversation than there is in the consumer conversation. So I sell liquid eggs, for example, and the chef has great knowledge of what liquid egg is, what the timeline is, the shelf life, etc., what it can be used for, all of that. The regular consumer might not have equal knowledge as a chef. You understand? So, for example, once I tried to introduce egg whites to the market, but egg whites have a pale yellow color. Some people say light urine color. So until you fry it, it look pale yellow. The regular chef, he knows that's how it looks. The client who used to seeing egg white after it's boiled, he don't know say it's an egg white when you put a lot of it together. Look, and by extension, don't want to buy it. So you have to put that in a container that don't show the egg white itself, which is a more expensive container. So there are certain differences. The influencers are different. So the purchaser in the consumer market might be one person will play multiple roles in the consumer market, which might not be so in the business market. So the decision maker is different from the influencer. So when I speak to the chef don't do the purchasing. The purchasing have a whole different agent who is handling that with different demands and different desires. So while the chef wants the best product for the best input to give him his best meal, there's a person who is in cost control that needs to make sure that the cost is considered as well as the benefits. So there are some differences that exist in that. What I'm fearful of is that going forward, many of the smaller companies might not survive, and by extension, bigger businesses will then take up some of those activities that the smaller companies will do. And the problem is that the bigger businesses also have B2B and B2C, if you understand what I'm saying, which makes the B2C sometimes less important because of volume. You understand? So when one client buy 100 cases of egg from me, which is 360 times 100, 3,600 eggs, he gets a different attention than when a client buy 3 dege egg from me. And if it is that I'm trying to satisfy both, I fear that my efforts the effort to satisfy the 3 egg man will be subservient to the effort to satisfy the 36,000 egg person.
Lots of issues to contend with. I don't think that we can say, I mean, I know trend watchers tend to always want to predict certain things, but there are those futurists who believe that most things we predict will not happen in the way that we predict them. So I won't ask you to make any predictions really, but I do think that we haven't quite figured out how people are really going to behave yet, because it's, as you said, are you going to need an umbrella after the rain? You really need to wait until the rain stops. So you see if it's sun too hot or even if shade does come out, and then you determine. So we don't really know yet how people are going to behave, but how do you prepare and be certain when everything is so uncertain as a business with regard to the consumer and their behavior?
Yeah, well, sometimes we force ourselves to be ahead of the game, too far ahead of the game. As we contend with now, there'll be some, what I call remnants of what we implemented now. So some people are putting in delivery service, just as an example. And whatever investment they make, they can continue that investment after and improve upon it after. There'll be others that is now seeking to be the best delivery service before we know if that will be a long-term reality.
Right.
You understand? So I'm saying that we should be cautious not to always want to be first mover when there's so much uncertainty. You see, the first mover is to be the best informed first, not just to be the first to jump. So if we get enough information first to say that this is a long-term thing, then go ahead. But if you're just acting on the fad or the current scenario created by this circumstance, then you have to be very careful. So yes, a lot of us are buying computers and a lot of us are buying chairs and a lot of us are buying tables because we're working from home. Will that be facilitated in the long term in the future? It might not. Companies might be finding it unreasonable to work as we are working now.
Right.
And so companies might say, no, come back in as soon as this thing is over. There might be other companies that say, well, I save water rate, I save light bill, stay home and work, it can happen. We have to be able to get enough information before we go and invest in buying 100 tables for home offices. You understand? So I really feel that there's not sufficient information in 8 weeks. I'm looking at countries like the United States, Italy, and how their people respond. But I really feel that the deprivation might shift back to norm after the rain ends. There'll be some of us who prepare for the next rain and by extension continue walking with our umbrella. But
Right.
I feel the Jamaican culture is not as risk averse as other cultures and are dying. Well, if you look now in many of our communities, staying inside is a difficult proposal for them to accept because them just not feel like there's a risk really as much as all of us do. So I am not sure if in the large scale we will be stuck in a COVID-19 normal.
There may not be as many changes as we think.
I don't think so. I think some of it will shift back. We might be 80% back and 20% there, or 60% back and 40% there. But I don't feel that, like, oh, I know friends now not taking JUTC and taking a taxi instead, that their income can afford it in the long run. But because they don't want to interface with too much people, them take taxi more than JUTC. Should I go buy 50 taxi and say taxi is the new normal? I should not.
Good point. I don't know if we have, I know we're out of time, so we appreciate Damion's generosity in going beyond the time, but we are interested to know if you have any question that you'd like Damion to address. So again, we're taking questions from the floor. If you have a question, you can pose that now.
Oh, I don't have a question. I just want to interject and say thanks, Damion, for that repping of Don Anderson's company. Also wanted to say that introverts are the new normal. I do agree with Damion that Jamaicans, or even for the most part, the rest of the world, will go back to their way of living, regardless of this whole COVID situation, because internet banking, washing of hands, those things already had existed and people were not doing it as how they should have been doing it. So I don't think COVID or the light of COVID will actually deter them. I mean, you might find some people who will say, okay, when I use a bathroom, I'll wash my hand. But I don't think necessarily that people will be sanitizing and washing their hands before they go and eat. I think we'll revert back to our old ways, because as what he says, we've been deprived, we're frustrated, but as soon as we get that clearance that everything is okay, Jamaicans, we're gonna go back to that old way.
Okay, thank you so much, Semoy. Any other? Yeah, thanks. I'm happy that you did that, Semoy, because I kept saying questions, so a person might feel like if you just had a comment that you can share. We are interested in your comments as well. So if you have a question or comment, you can share that now.
If I can interject as well with what is it Samoy? What's her name? Samoy? Yes, with what she said. With internet banking, you see, knowledge and risk are also inversely related. Greater knowledge lead to lower risk, and higher and lower knowledge lead to greater risk. What this period has done is to force some people to become knowledgeable of internet banking, and by extension, some will perceive less risk. So that's why I'm saying I'm not sure what the percentage is, but some will stay in the current reality and not shift back. But I believe a lot will shift back to the negative. Yes.
Okay, yes, sorry guys, I'm seeing some questions now. Rosalind, you made a comment. Let me just quickly go to the chat to get Rosalind's comment. My apologies, Rosalind, that I didn't see it before. Here we are, chat. Oh, this. Oh, yeah, we have some questions here. Hold on. Let me. Marcel Dawkins. Do the customers expect to pay for delivery? Not sure, Marcel, what the context of that. Marcel, could you just share now what you mean by if the customers expect? You mean going forward? I mean, all right. I don't know if you can comment on that any at all, Damion, with regard to customers' expectation of things they're paying for now versus when. Oh yes, she says going forward. Or he.
Yes. They might not, because they might not see value in it. You see, all right. I'm going to explain something quickly. So people buy based on value, not price, and not benefits. It's just based on a combination of that, a ratio of value to benefit. So I bought a car with a sunroof because I'm a politician. Election times, I go through the sunroof and I wave to people. Now,
Right.
had it not been that I'm a politician, I wouldn't pay for a sunroof, because that is unnecessary for me. You understand? There's no time that I open it and just have my hair blowing in the wind. I
Right.
use it because it assists in a particular period of my life. So therefore, now that I'm seeking not to catch COVID, I will pay for delivery. However, going forward, I might not. That's the problem that we have. So you have to analyze, how much am I willing to pay? And that is partially dependent on what is the summation of my purchase and what is the percent of delivery of the summation of my purchase. So if I buy something for $3,000 and you said delivery is 4,000, no.
You're not going to
But
buy
if
that.
I buy 100,000 and deliver is 4,000, fine. You understand? So
Yeah.
what might be that there might be middle ground realities. For example, there might be supermarkets that are willing to deliver to an apartment, and they may then split the cost of that delivery, which might be, you have to pay me
Right.
some of them analysis, you have to pay me, right? But they might they might accept. So an apartment will say, okay, we will make lump sum orders and you deliver to the apartment, and that might be $10, but
Yeah.
we will be unwilling to pay individually $500. So people will be able to find new things. There'll be persons now, teachers might offer online courses. So therefore, maybe people still go back to prep school Mondays to Fridays, but maybe Saturday extra classes is now online.
Online. Yeah. More.
You understand? So a teacher might now offer online on Saturdays as the PEP preparation. You get me? So
Right.
I said to my friends today that the parents who are not as smart, not helping their kids, so we want to start a website called PEP for Parents. You understand? Now,
Right.
that is very important. No, but after it might be weekends only. Because when it come back to going back to work, homeschool is not a possibility, because who's going to watch these kids? You understand? So people are willing to pay because they perceive value in avoiding COVID.
Right.
No. When COVID gone, would they perceive the same value? If not, they will be unwilling to pay.
So I have a question here from Damion. Have you found that banks, sorry, Delton, pardon me, Delton says this is a question for Damion. Have you found that banks, insurance companies, etc., have been slow to respond appropriately to the needs of customers?
Well, the bank is going to respond profitably. So the bank might not respond quickly if him don't see a profit in it. Right? So we might be saying the bank should be doing more for assisting in a crisis, but the bank is a business. So for example, I feel that more people are going to buy health insurance. I feel there will be an immediate boom in health insurance because there will be a feeling of deprivation in this time. Like, suppose me really catch it, I mean, I have no insurance. You understand? So people, I believe, after COVID for the first 3 months, insurance are going to bid, right? People are going to run for buy insurance because they perceive that risk. I perceive that there will be a reduction in loans. How people feel a level of risk now, like, yo, suppose me to lose my work, we need to pay off this. So like me, now I'm saying, yo, this credit card I need to pay off. I don't want to have those loans because if some shock happen and I can't make money as I used to. So those are things that are gonna happen. So each entity is going to respond profitably. And I believe that the banks are not willing to take the cost of some of these. I don't think some of these banks are going to open back some of these locations. When
that it can work.
I mean, some of us is not going to employ back some of these people because that's where the new normal come in. Like, yo, we can do the same thing with 2 people. I don't need to employ back this person.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, let me take a question from Paul. Paul Thompson says, would you encourage businesses that have experienced a fall in demand to continue their marketing efforts to increase demand, or should they direct their resources elsewhere? Thank you.
I'm speaking to promotional efforts. You see,
Yes.
enough time we confuse promotion to be marketing in and of itself. That's not so. Marketing is a total effort to build a relationship. So I am not sending any flyers. I'm not sending any flyers to my clients, but I'm calling some of those who I use to interface and I say, all right, because that's a part of marketing.
Yes.
You understand? How we can help, how you stay. So if a person who is a buyer from me, let's say a hotel person who is maybe the purchasing assistant, a call from me is marketing. Yo, how it go? Ray, you know, we can send you a thing if I have a thing. You get what I'm saying? I can help you with a circumstance, a situation. So the effort to market is not stuck only in the promotional activities. You get what I'm saying? If you have a website, would you offer me some free advertisement in the time? Because I'm withdrawing my ads now because I don't have the money. But it's marketing. If I say, no, man, just go and stay for 2 months or give me 5% for 2 months, because then now you develop a relationship with me that when things get back to original, I feel grateful for the way that you handled the situation when I was down. So people should still be marketing, but you have to be careful how you're promoting. Some people will perceive it as negative if you're promoting a particular way. I quite like what the JTB has done in their promotion, just saying, we're here, we stand with you, and you know, when you recover, we'll be here again. Instead of saying, come to Jamaica and feel all right, you know?
Right. There is one piece of research I was looking at suggesting that the Gen Zers, those coming after the millennials, are expecting, they're paying attention to advertising, but part of what they expect companies to do is to talk about other, you know, offer them beyond their products. Just like you just said, tell me something else about you beyond what you have to sell to me. Tell me something that makes me feel like you care about me. That the research is suggesting that that's what they are looking.
Yes, they expect you to help. It's
to do that.
Right. And some of our companies have been doing an excellent job. For example, I said Digicel and Red Stripe and some of those people, they have been keeping concerts. And that has contributed to the experience of staying home. You understand? And people may feel a level of gratefulness. You get what I'm saying? That this was facilitated by this company. So and that is not a direct advertisement to say, yeah, go and buy some credit.
But that goes into improving the brand equity of and how people feel about that brand. So after the whole thing is done, they're like, oh, I remember that, you know, you gave me this great feeling by sponsoring a concert. So I'm going to patronize your business. You know, when you look at those international brands, you look at Dove and some of the things that they're saying about, we care about you taking care of yourself. You know, so it's not about selling you a Dove soap, but it's just reminding you to take care of yourself, because that's a big deal, you know. And so if you're a Dove person, you kind of say, wow, this is my brand, and you feel good that that's the message they're putting out there.
The brand equity is a perfect term that you use. You can improve your brand equity by marketing in a particular way. So some of my clients, I said to them, yo, we're not making money now, but we're staying open because you need eggs for your cake. He feels satisfied that, yo, yeah, you took one for me. You understand? So that is how you build some equity. So if you have clients sending out information about COVID, is a method. You understand about how to respond, what to do, and not necessarily about your brand, but it will be branded, and then that will that will improve their connection, you know, with you
later. So Paul, so the question is, he was asking about if you should continue to market or promote. Sure. Andrew Ladley, you say you have a question. Go ahead. You want to say it or you're going to write it?
No, I'll go ahead and say it, Kalando.
All right, great, Andrew. Welcome.
Yeah. So, Andrew Ladley, business reporter, TVJ News. I wanted to find out from you, Damion. I know that many companies are asking their employees to work from home. But at the same time, persons are seeing higher electricity bills, higher utility bills overall. Do you think that employers should give consideration to an additional benefit during this COVID-19 times, regardless of the fact that they're cutting back because employees are in fact bearing this burden, this higher utility burden? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a difficult question to answer because the two people are in the same circumstance. The employees barely surviving, and the employers is just hoping to go through this. So if you can afford, I think it has now become a tool of trade. If we are going forward with this after COVID, then your electricity must be considered as a tool, a necessary tool, and a contribution should be made. Maybe not all of it, but for example, companies give you a motor vehicle or give you upkeep if you are a traveling officer. If you're working from home, I think that upkeep, light bill is like upkeep, or a telephone or whatever, but it might not be total. But if any additional expense come to my company now, I mean, I would be depressed by it. So I can imagine that some companies will not want to. And it come back to my original point that many will not move forward as is, because you might not see sufficient drop in your base light bill for you to subsidize your workers' home light bill so that they can work from home. And the worker might say, me not taking this expense, so I'm going to go in. And I think after COVID, the two will say, come back into the office after this. But it's a difficult requirement. As the teachers are saying, they want internet subsidized by the government because that is now a part of their natural expense to deliver the effort that is required of them. And I don't think it's unreasonable, but I also can see where a small business or a medium-sized business might find it unaffordable.
So Janice, Andrew is asking you to take that question as well from the employer supporting employee perspective.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Damion. I think if the organisation can afford it, it's a nice to have, because at the end of the day, the employee is still helping them operate their business. And conversely, they may have a lower cost in their building if they're not running air conditioning and all those additional costs that they can transfer over. But I think it's a very fine balance. If they choose to move into this as a permanent arrangement, then I think there has to be some sort of subsidy going forward, like having your company car or your fuel allowance and stuff like that. I think that has to be a consideration. But right now, I think it's a bit of a give and take. But if I put my employee head, if I was my employee, would I want to be, I'm already inconvenienced as it is being at home, because especially if I've got children, the childcare and stuff like that, challenges, do I want an additional headache of having to find the additional money to pay for those resources? So it's a fine balance. It's a fine balance.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I realized it was Nathaniel who posed the question to you from Andrew. Good repost there, Nathaniel. Okay, so Bridget says it's a give and take, light bill equal lunch money and transportation. So Bridget is suggesting that if you have a saving on your lunch money and transportation cost, then you can put that on the light bill. So again, and as Damion said, it's going to be, there are two parties. So it's going to be based on what you can afford, if you see that. Thanks, Janice. Okay, do we have I'm not seeing any more questions right now, and we are nearly half an hour beyond the time. So I want to say thank you to Damion, Crawford, and Janice Sutherland for being on this call today with us as we were talking about the people factor, taking care of your people and your customers. On the people side, team side, we were talking about how you can strengthen that ability to provide leadership and motivation to the teams while they work remotely. And on the consumer side, we definitely were looking at how to monitor or track or observe the consumer behavior and how that is impacting business. This was a very fruitful conversation, and I want to thank everybody for attending. We have two more webinar sessions to have. Next one is going to look at the technology and choosing the right technology to survive during and after, or staying in business, as we said, during and after COVID-19. And then we are going to the third session is going to look at business intelligence. And of course, that's now looking at all that data that you would have been generating during this time and seeing how that can be turned into useful insight for big decisions post COVID-19. Thank you for attending. And we were asking if you can tell us which time would be good for you for the other two. I'm not sure if we captured any of that yet, but you could still just send an email to solutions@mcsystems.com is one of the places that we're asking that. Certainly, if you want to get any advice about technology solutions that could help you in this time, solutions@mcsystems is one place that you could send an email, or you can reach out to your association. We definitely want to thank our association partners, the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and the private sector organization. Thank you for attending today's session. We trust the information was useful to you. We are going to share with you in a few days a few reminders from the session to help you to make those decisions that you need to make right now, to provide some empowerment so you can take some action to stay in business during and after COVID-19. So you can look out for that. In the meantime, in this mask wearing, corona quarantine and curfew, we remind you to practice physical distancing even as we remain socially connected until we beat this thing. Until next time, I'm Kalando Wilmoth, and I'll see you again soon. I'm going to leave you now with a track from wait a second, it's failing me a moment. A nice reminder of staying at home, courtesy of DJ Power and Prime Minister.
The coronavirus cannot move around by itself. If we control our movement, we can control the spread. If you do not have urgent matters to attend to, stay at home. If you have a cough, sneeze, fever, stay at home. If you like symptoms of any respiratory illness, stay at home. If you do not have urgent matters to attend to, stay at home. By order under the Disaster Risk Management Act, stay at home. If you must go to the market, make a list and shop by. Do not stay longer than necessary. Make a list and shop by. Avoid touching surfaces. Avoid crowds and standing close. Use a mask or a scarf to cover nose, mouth. If you have a cough, sneeze, sniffle, fever, stay at home. If you like symptoms of any respiratory illness, stay at home. Tan Ayoya, by order under the Disaster Risk Management Act, stay at home.
Excellent presentation. Excellent. All right, guys, have a good day.